If an agency or an individual can generally grow your business from 5 million to 20 million, what's that worth to your enterprise value? What's that worth to your business outcomes that you're looking for? And I would say pay what it takes to get the right people. All right, everybody. Today we are diving deep into something that I think both agencies and brands get wrong all the time, actually. And that is agency incentives, pricing structures, and who's actually responsible for growing your business. I think this is the main purpose of the episode. But we're also going to be talking about agency versus in-house. I'm going to share our pricing model at Kynship. I'm going to break down why most agency pricing, I think, is broken. And then ultimately prove to you through a couple of recent examples in the sales process why I think, what proves why growing your business takes way more than just good ads or good creative. So first, I'm going to paint a real picture that you've probably lived through to some degree. You hire an agency, they promise the world in the sales process. You get assigned to some junior employee who's also managing 17 other accounts. 6 months later, you've burned through cash, nothing to show for it. You're back on the market looking for another agency, right? Probably sounds too familiar, to which I would say, I'm sorry. Now, here's where I think most people get confused around agency incentives. The classic percentage of spend. Everyone worries that if you pay an agency a percentage of spend, they're just going to blow through your budget. No real, performance in mind. They just want more money. But the reality is, they won't do that because you'll fire them. That doesn't set up well for client retention. And no agency, I can tell you firsthand, wants constantly to churn clients. Client retention is way cheaper than constantly acquiring new business. It is extremely important to every agency. Unless you have weird incentives and you're just trying to burn through clients, you want to keep your clients. So I think the real problem is not pricing structure. Everybody gets all in a tizzy around pricing structures of agencies. It's really around finding the right partner. And so when you find someone who actually delivers value, the pricing becomes way less important. Price is correlative to value. So if you see the value, you'll pay extremely high dollars for something that you deem as very valuable. In most cases, brands are really particular about the agencies that they hire because they see that their ad account specifically and Meta on specifically is very crucial to their growth. So you'll happily pay an agency because they're making you money. But before you think the solution is bringing everything in-house, I would also tell you that that's usually not the answer either, because when you hire in-house, there's always another host of problems. And we'll get into this as well. But there's poaching, there's salary creep, there's replacement costs. And honestly, one person, where most people compare agencies to one hire, cannot have the pattern recognition that comes from managing dozens of accounts. So I'll just be transparent about our pricing. Here's how we structure things differently at Kynship and why I think it aligns incentives properly. So we will charge anywhere a flat fee between 10 to 25K. I know that's a wide range, depending on your business complexity, needs, what we're including, obviously. But here's the kicker. We add a percentage of growth on top of that. Not a percentage of total spend, a percentage of the growth in ad spend above your baseline. So here's how it actually works. Your baseline is set as your first monthly spend during your first 30 days under our management, right? So that could be, your previous 30 days could be mismanagement. It could be a lot of waste of ad spend. So we want to reset it under first 30 days under us. And that is now deemed baseline spend. And so we only earn extra when we grow your spend above that baseline. And that baseline resets every 4 months to keep things fair and ultimately account for seasonality. So why does this work? I think because spend growth is actually a fantastic proxy for performance. If we're growing your spend, it means that ads are working and you're making money, especially on cost controls. And we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But essentially, we can only grow ad spend if we're acquiring customers at our AME, our efficiency. So that becomes mutually aligned. So if we can't grow your spend, it means performance isn't there, or there's seasonality and we're not going to take it. There's going to be a lower from baseline spend anyways. But ultimately we don't get rewarded for failure, right? So it solves the incentive alignment problem that I think people have. And we're not incentivized to wastefully blow through budget because ultimately, obviously, you'd fire us. And we're incentivized to grow your business profitably because that's the only way we make more money in addition to the flat fee. Again, I think most people get too concerned around pricing. What most people get wrong when hiring an agency, you're shopping for the cheapest option or the flashy creative or the new, tool in the toolbox. It's obviously wrong. You should be shopping for what I would say is a proven playbook, what we call the Kynship system, and how I think we're different from other agencies out there, or how I like to think that agencies should be presenting themselves as a system or a playbook at the very least, using those words synonymous. And I think that's because, you're not going to an agency because of what you think you need. You're going to them for their playbook, their system. And I think the right system includes creative volume and conceptual clarity of strategies, being financially driven, where ad buying is tied to your unit economics and is driving towards those targets and the outcomes that you are wanting from a financial point of view, which is business is a finance game. So whether that's top line and bottom line goals, they are into cohort-based forecasting. I think this is a non-negotiable at this point. If you don't understand the LTV, CAC to LTV, cohort-based forecasting, whatever you want to use for this, you are underspending potentially. Manual bidding, proper bid caps, cost caps, and obviously not doing testing campaigns. I think that's a massive waste. And then how do you evaluate if they can actually execute this playbook? I think this is a checklist. You want to ask for detailed process breakdowns. You want to request to speak with references, and you want to request to speak with the person managing your account. Get references, get referrals, ask about their retention rates, ask about average relationship length. And I think the way that agencies, they have a structural advantage. We have a structural advantage in developing playbooks, right? We see data from dozens, hundreds of accounts. We can cut through the noise of every brand is different because we actually know what's universal and what's not, right? And so when agencies win, it's because we have proven operational systems. We have cross-account pattern recognition. We can refine processes for managing multiple clients. We have built-in redundancy if team members leave, right? I think the downsides of agencies are obviously and I'm flying through this just because I know some of these people or some of you listening understand these things. But the downside of an agency obviously is the biggest one is divided attention, right? You're not focusing on one client. You're focusing on a variety of clients per team. So there's potential inconsistency in execution. There's like flexibility for random different requests, one-off requests. And there's also risk, right? Like there's risk of teams changing, team members changing, leaving. And I think in-house can be amazing under specific conditions. I think when in-house wins, you find genuinely exceptional talent. Obviously, they have 100% focus on your business. And then you're willing to pay market rates for top talent. And then you have systems that you can plug this person into, right? And I think that's where the in-house downside that people don't talk about is that you have talent that leaves. And when they do, you lose that continuity. I think the biggest thing is they don't have the system and playbook development. They see your single account, add in all the other stuff of the burden of salary, benefits, potentially equity. And then what I see all the time here, guys, is that they will never tell you if they're bored. And especially if you poach someone from an agency, I've seen this many times, is that, going from an agency, working on a variety of accounts, constantly moving, constantly new people to talk to. It's fast paced. It's really fun. A brand brings that person in-house. Oh, they've been our media buyer. And now that person is bored. I've seen this story written several times. So what does that person do? They start, adding on things on the side to kind of make up for that boredom. So I think there's massive replacement costs when that person inevitably leaves. But I would say what most people don't want to hear is that exceptional growth talent is expensive. So whether that's agency or in-house, when you hear our pricing, it's like, oh, wow, we charge premium, maybe compared to most of the market rates. I would say growth talent is expensive, and that is in-house or agency. And the supply-demand dynamics are brutal. Every e-commerce brand wants great growth people, but great growth people are rare. So ultimately, I would say don't shop on price. Think about it like this. If an agency or an individual can generally grow your business from 5 million to 20 million, What's that worth to your enterprise value? What's that worth to your business outcomes that you're looking for? And I would say pay what it takes to get the right people, ultimately. And the biggest point that I wanted to make today, I think I need to be brutally honest about something most agencies probably won't tell you, is that growing your business is not our job. We call ourselves an e-commerce growth agency, but I would say that growth is not our job. And let me explain what I mean with a real example. I recently did an audit for a recent client, and when I dove into their numbers, I found extremely high cost of delivery, very, very, very low gross margin. I'm talking around 30%, 35%. I'm just trying to be vague here. Their repeat rates were declining year over year. They had negative contribution margin on new customer acquisition over the last 12 months, right? So on their ad spend. So you add in all these factors, their fixed costs were 19% of revenue. Now, I could say, oh, great, like we'll win here. I could take the client's money, optimize their ad account, get them better creative, right? Improve their ROAS, and they'd still be in trouble. Why? Because the fundamental economics of their business are broken. Here's what I can't fix. I can't negotiate with their manufacturer to reduce COGS. I can't fix their shipping and fulfillment costs. I can't develop better products that create more repeat purchasers. I can't restructure their team to reduce fixed costs. I can't fix their email deliverability when that killed their retention efforts, right? What we can fix their ad account structure and their negative contribution margin decline, right? We can fix their creative strategy. We can fix their management of their ad accounts. We can fix their LPs, their landing pages. We can get into more of a forecasting and planning mode. But ultimately, the job of growth is the CEO's job to coordinate all the moving pieces of the business. The agency's job is to be world-class at our specific piece of that puzzle, right? So this is why I always tell potential clients, if your business has fundamental problems, no agency out there is going to be able to save you. We can make our piece excellent, but if your product sucks, your margins are terrible, or your fulfillment is broken, you're still obviously going to struggle, right? So I think this is a huge part of what I would say is we call ourselves the e-commerce growth agency, but our growth is not our main responsibility. Obviously, our job is to grow the portion that we are hired to do, but it's within that framework of solving that piece of the puzzle. We all have a role to play is my main point, especially when businesses have fundamental problems in other areas of the business. That is primarily the CEO's job. And when I'm talking to founders, CEOs, main decision makers, when I'm in the sales process, why we do the forecasting methodology in the sales cycle, because I can identify these other areas. It sets up everyone for success. It's not pointing the finger at poking holes at other parts of their P&L and to say, hey, you guys need to fix these things so we can alleviate our pressure. But it's to set everybody else up, and we're all coming to the table to do this together, right? It's going to take everyone, all hands on deck. Just like, the conversation becomes around sports with Patrick Mahomes. Is it Patrick Mahomes or is it Andy Reid? Is it Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? Who's responsible for growth? Well, football is a team sport. There's 22 people on the field, 11 on offense, 11 on defense. It takes everyone to win the Super Bowl. And business is very much the same way. And why business and sports is a direct parallel is because it takes everybody working, everybody pulling on the same end of the rope to get to the business outcome that you guys are looking for. So that is one of the main reasons that I want to get on the podcast today, to really jump in and say, yes, not only when you should hire an agency or go in-house, but also let's think about whose main job is the growth. The CEO cannot put all of that growth on the agency. Oh, I hired an e-commerce growth agency. They're going to grow my business. Yes, we are going to optimize and fix and improve what we are directly responsible over. And part of our philosophy at Kynship is, because we have this level of view, we can be even better partners. We can say, hey, this is where we can drive demand. This is where we can capture demand. But these other parts of the business, if they improve, we're really going to get to our goals even quicker, right? If you reverse this decline in repeat rates, this makes significant improvement on profitability. If you improve your gross margin by 1%, we can lower our AMER by, X. All of this level of detail, it really makes why I believe agencies that do the level of detail like Kynship valuable partners. But please do not replace that burden of growth and put that onto an agency, whether they call themselves the e-commerce growth agency or not, because that is primarily the CEO's job. So going back to the question of when you should hire an agency versus building in-house, I think generally speaking, around 30 to 50K in ad spend is when you should start looking at an agency. I don't think you should hire an agency under that. First of all, I don't think you can really afford most agencies. Yes, you can afford a freelancer, but you need to understand the fundamentals before you can effectively manage anyone else. And I would say, I don't think you're valuable enough at that point, even to a freelancer. That freelancer needs to charge or have lots of clients to really make that freelance business really meaningful to them, even at that stage. So I'd say sub 30 to 50K in ad spend. Don't worry about hiring an agency, or at least get really good, proper understanding of ads, of Meta, of TikTok, of Google before you start offloading this. And then at that point, I think this is prime agency territory, right? The 50K and up, I would say 50K to 400, 500K, 600K in ad spend. This is, I think, prime agency territory. Even up to $1 million. I think you need sophisticated playbooks and systems, and you can't afford a full in-house team with the same level of experience and expertise, right? So you need to make sure that the agency makes good margin on you. If they don't, you won't get good service. And I think that is a misconception in the agency world. Brands, we celebrate, oh my gosh, you have 85% gross margin, but brands will, oh my gosh, how much margin are you making on me as a client for some reason? It goes both ways, guys. People need to be in business. And I think you want your agency to make good margin because you'll get quality service. And then I think above the 500 to $1 million, 500, maybe you start entertaining $1 million. Definitely you start entertaining, maybe you benefit from a hybrid model, in-house team that's growing, supplemented by more of a specialized agency, or more of a flat fee arrangement where it's like, it makes sense, where there's performance bonuses, almost like how we structure it. That's why we have clients that are spending more than $1 million a month. But again, you want your agency to make money on you. You want them to be valuable to you. And you want to get their best resources, right? So again, the best agency relationships happen, our best clients happen when the CEO and the owner, the operator, understands the distinction that they come to us and say, hey, here's what you need to own and execute perfectly, and here's what we're handling on our end. And that is the beauty of our process. And that's a partnership that works. If someone comes to me expecting us to 10x their business while they change nothing, I think that's a recipe for disappointment on both sides, right? And I think that's exactly why, in our world, why we do a deep dive audit, we identify all the growth levers. We are going to, stabilize the ad account. We're going to implement cost controls. We're going to stop the bleeding most of the time. We're going to scale creative production. We're going to launch influencer seeding or customer generated content. And then we're going to optimize and scale, testing new angles, testing offers. Do we have the right AMER target? But while we're doing all of that, you, the founder, need to be working on your margins. I don't care whether you have good margins or not. 1% can be doing well. You need to be thinking about new product expansion, especially if you don't have strong LTV. You need to be building retention systems. You need to be optimizing your operations. And no agency out there is a silver bullet. We're not. We're part of a system. When we inject our system into brands that already have all these other layers, and that system only works when everyone's rowing in the same direction. So here's what I want you to take away from this. First, agency pricing should align incentives. Our model, flat fee plus percentage of growth, ensures we win when you win. But also don't get lost in agency pricing. I think people over-index into that. Again, you want to find the right partner. You want to find the most value. the people that have a operational system and playbook and not just a set of services. So make sure any agency you work with can clearly articulate their playbook and how they're going to operationalize it in your business, from a financial point of view primarily, and then from an execution standpoint. And then third, growth is a team sport. It is not all on the quarterback. It is not all on the offensive line. Your agency can drive traffic, optimize conversions, but they cannot fix fundamental business issues. That is ultimately on you, the operator, and that's what you want. The buck stops with you. Fourth, and then I think you need to be realistic about timelines. Real growth takes months, not weeks. That's why we forecast the business 12 months ahead, and we're constantly reforecasting the business. After each month reconciles, we're reforecasting out the next 12 months. We're thinking long-term about your business goals, and you want a growth partner that is thinking about the long-term vision of your business alongside you. So anyone promising overnight success is lying to you. And I think you need to have a partner that's realistic about the timelines of your business operationally at this current standpoint, using historical inputs to inform the future projection. If nothing changed, but then ultimately you're hiring a partner to impact that change. So we have another episode on agency pricing. If you want to get into specific where people, driving down low pricing, I think there's a lot of concerns around when you hear agencies that are offering the world for, $5,000 or less. I would be very, very leery. There's another episode on that. There's other episodes about our evolution. But if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review. That really helps us. And as always, I'm available CODY at Kynship, KYNSHIP.co, Cody at Kynship.co. Over email, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, hit me up. I'm available. And as always, we'll see you next time.